Hi, this is Kat Graff with Rise Collective. I'm incredibly excited to be talking today to Obe Onyioha, the just incredibly talented pop icon, social anthropologist, doctorate, three-time beauty contest winner, author of two novels and a collection of poetry. She's incredibly talented, and we're really, really lucky to be here today. How are you doing today, Obe?
Oh, that is absolutely incredible intro. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for asking. And and you've done your homework on me then, haven't you? I was going to fill you in and tell you all the great things I've done, but you beat me to it.
We still want to talk very much about it. But first, I just want to talk about your performance. It's like so electric. You have this like real presence, like you're sort of like with us in the audience. You point to people, and
Yeah.
what like feeds your performances? Like, what do you draw off of when you have
People.
that energy?
People. Really, I draw the energy. They are like my oxygen. When I react to how they react to me. If that makes it's like a cycle, isn't it? I give up something, they react, and I react back. So I love their enthusiasm feeds my enthusiasm. So that's a trick actually. Because when you entertaining and people are giving back to you all the good vibes, it spurs you on. It makes you want to even do more. So that's where my inspiration comes. The people, the audience, you know, and I love that.
That's so amazing. And like, all of your music is like so optimistic, and it's you have this real like message of hope. But there's also sort of like a recognition of, hardship and suffering in your
Yeah,
music that is
yeah,
really compelling. In one of your songs, Slow Down, you say they're begging you for everything.
yeah. Which is
Um
what people do. You have, and that is the thing. Pleasers who want to please everybody. They want to give you this, and they want to. They're asking you for this and asking you for that. You want to do this for them. You want to do this, and in some ways, it's a reflection of my own life. Because I want to do for everybody. I hate to hear somebody suffer. If you're in difficulty, and my default is to help. It doesn't make me a particularly good person. It's just it's just my default, and that's just the way I am. And that's why, for a while, when I first got into the music business, I got cheated a lot out of royalties, and all because of this niceness, because I didn't want to. So if you went to, if you went somewhere, if I went to collect royalties or sent somebody for my royalties, and they tell any sub story, I'll sit there and start crying with them, not knowing they're telling lies until the next artist they paid the artist, and I said, oh well, why didn't it? They said, oh, they'll tell you a sub story, and that will be that, so that is all part of it,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, I think it's like it's such a like crazy story because you worked so hard and you achieved so much, and then like the industry never sort of really gave you that like recognition for all of this work that you've been doing. Um,
Well, it's not just me. That's part for the course, really. And again, you have to have the right representation. The right people to represent you to actually make sure that people don't cheat on you. But to do that, I started when I was really young, so I didn't know all these things, and I was in school, so I wasn't really doing anything. I wasn't really going to try to do music as a career, so because from my culture is the culture I come from, traditional cultures is, oh, you go to school, be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, and what are you doing music, and at that time they had a point then, I know we may say, oh, they were not encouraging, but at that time, even now, music really doesn't, you have to be lucky to really make money from it. It's not really a livelihood you can count on. You understand? So you have to be, even I have seen talented singers, talented artists, who's still suffering, you know. Like when I did my first album, some of the people who sang my backing vocals, I mean, they were brilliant singers. You understand? I mean, they were absolutely sing. I used to just sit there in awe while they're doing my backing vocal. I said, shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't they be sitting here and I'm doing, So it's, I don't know whether it's fate, destiny, but it doesn't often work that people are recognized really for what they've
I
contributed.
mean, that's really great. Thank you. I mean, you had this sort of like, not being treated fairly by the music industry for so many years, and then in 2015 you decided to come back with the new album Heritage.
Yeah.
So what sort of like motivated you to decide like, okay, I'm gonna come back in this way?
Well, okay. I tell you, the thing about the heritage thing is, well, it was because I went into social anthropology, and an anthropology that was is all to do with culture, an impact of culture in lives and societal norms and all that sort of thing. And then I started thinking about how music impacts, because from in the Nigerian culture, music impacts in everything. It impacts in so many ways. It was used as a societal control, for instance. So, for instance, if you did something that was not acceptable to the society, they would use your name in a song telling that story, and that's it forever. Your name is tainted. You understand? So music was a very powerful tool. It wasn't just about entertainment. It was about societal control as well. Societal control in a good way. Well, some were bad too, but generally, to people, keep people on a good path. And so after I got into anthropology and all that, and I started thinking, about the impact music has. So it was all part of that. Then I said, wait a minute, what happened to all our traditional songs? Which we don't have anymore. We just concentrate and focus on just the modern music and all that. And meanwhile, all our traditional songs are actually dying. The songs are dying. I say, to the young people, my daughter, I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning her. So I said, do you know this song? She said, no, Mom, I don't know. Do you know that one? No, Then all of a sudden I said, wait a minute. These are songs that my grandmother taught my mother. My mother taught, my great great grandmother taught her, my great grandmother, and great grandmother taught my grandmother, and grandmother taught my mother and taught me. And now we got to pass it on. So I then thought, the way to do this is get some of those music and compile them into some kind of compilation, so that even after I'm not here, there's still, those songs are still there. Somebody can refer to, and dip into. So I decided to do that, and then I gave it a name, African traditional music, so Afro Trado. So that's what I'm going to be calling those that music, right now. But I'm not done with it yet. I started doing it, but it was mostly demo, But I'm reeling them all back in a little bit at a time now, one at a time, to redo them, and give them the final structure, So it was just, I put them out there, for out of nothing else to do. Because I was doing other things there. So one day I just said, "Oh, let me just put that." But actually, I'm still working on them, to what to how I want it to be.
Well, I'm really, really excited for anything else that comes out with that. Like, that's amazing. And I think like this idea of like Afro Trado is such an interesting idea because when you listen to the music, it's got all these contemporary features. It's got like filthy bass lines, but
Yeah.
also these like gorgeous, beautiful melodies that are just woven together like this. And I just wonder, like, what does it mean to you to make traditional music? What does like tradition mean?
Oh, forgot. It means everything. It means everything. Because I'm not old fashioned or anything like that. And even for young people, I find it really interesting, when my daughter, she says, "Oh, kids have changed now. In my day, her day, she was a teenager only yesterday." Now already she say, "In my day," So as soon as we come out of that teenage thing, angst, we start appreciating the tradition we have. When I mean tradition is about selective selecting what works and what doesn't work. Tradition doesn't, it's not a diehard thing where you stick to it whether it's good or bad. You become selective, you pick what's good, what works, and then jettison the rest. So for me, having those traditions in those songs, because some of those traditions, the songs are the vehicle, for those traditions, they're the vehicle, they carry those messages in those songs. So that is a way of making sure that the tradition lives on.
Wow, I mean, that's really moving, and I think, like, that is, like, such an interesting definition of tradition. I really that's so powerful. So, obviously anthropology has informed a lot of how you approach that kind of material. But also, while you're studying for anthropology, you were studying in London, correct? So sort of away from Nigeria itself. How did it feel to sort of like be taking this new interest in the study of, history and culture while also being separated physically from the place where you were?
Well, the thing was, well, it started. I was a history student in Oakland University. So, and that came from the influence of my father. My father, Chief K.O.K. Onyioha, mentioned dad. God rest his soul. He's passed away now. And he was an anthropologist. And when we were growing up, he was writing a lot of papers for lectures at universities and all that. So we were privy to a lot of his things that he had investigated, his research. So it was a really a great influence on me, and I started being interested in, the cultures and all that sort of thing, listening to him and all that, so that made made me become interested in it's all long things. He used to investigate the paranormal in the African tradition, in the African cultures. And the one that fascinated me most was when the riverine area in Nigeria had this culture tradition where women would leave their kids to go to the farms, and they would just say some words, and a big python, who they believe to be the guardian of the people, comes out, and she will leave her child, baby, there, and the python will just be across the threshold, and nobody comes in there. And this woman come back from the farm, and the python will wriggle away. So the python was like the babysitter, wild. I mean, these were fascinating things. So of the ancient times, when people and the spirit world were very close. You understand? And such stories fascinated me, So that was really one of the reasons, that fascination with it, with that sort of that world, history, anthropology, you know, I lapped it up, So I just carried on there, you know.
That's, I mean, really moving actually. And a lot of your poems talk about your father as well, and sort of like the and the connection that you have. I mean, even when you're distant from him, the connection that you still have. Do you believe in the spirit worlds?
Oh God, yeah, I do. We grew up in that, in the belief of reincarnation. You understand? And it wasn't just a sterile belief. It was actually something we experienced. You know, uh, my brother, for instance, when he was, is believed to be the reincarnation of my grandfather, and when he was born, there were all kinds of signs he was showing, and then when he was born, he wouldn't cry at the hospital. So they had to get my dad, say, oh, he better hurry to the hospital because the child wasn't crying. They thought they were going to lose the child. You know how it is? They slap the child on the bottom and all that, and nothing happens. And so my dad was in a political rally then. So he ran and came back. And when he came back, he was shown into the room, here's your son, he's about to die. So he said, no, he's not about to die. He just wants to be recognized. And he called him his name. That is his name in the past life. Called him his name 3 times. And that boy went, "Wah!" Weird. And then his dad said he just wants to be recognized. And then my other thing, my auntie came and carried him, happy that they have a son now, carried him on her lap, and he messed up her dress, her cloth, and she changed, and he messed it up again. And that was what she did to him when she was born. And he came back from the farm, carried her, he messed up her dress, and he changed the cloth, carried her again, she messed it up twice. And then in my case was, we had just come, I was about 2 years old, 2.5, that sort of age, and we've never been to the village before. So went to the village, and what happened, I disappeared. That is, well, everybody was looking for me, well, where is she? My mom was frantic, where did she go? Eventually, after minutes, they found me sitting in front of a fallen hut, a dilapidated hut, mud hut, sitting there ever so calmly. And I had all these village people running around looking for me. They said, there she is, there she is. So my mom came grab me. You know how, because of anxiety, what are you doing then? And I calmly, in my 2-year-old voice, said to them that I don't know what they're fussing about, that I only came to see my house. And that house was the house of my grandmother, my father's mother, where she used to live, you know. And what else was interesting was she was the lead singer of the village. Would you believe? And I didn't know all these things. It wasn't like I knew these things and then said, oh, I'm going to start singing or anything. It was only much later, after that, when my dad was shaking his head and saying about reincarnation and all that, say you reincarnated, were singing in the past life and now you're singing in this life as well, you know. So it's interesting.
That's those are some crazy stories, I have to say. Like, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I guess just one last question. You I think in like the modern society, like music is, a commodity and it's entertainment and it's something to be sold for money and that people will enjoy, but not, you don't have to think too hard about it and you don't have to feel like there's a connection to tradition in order to sort of enjoy it and pay for it. Um, what do you think we're losing when we lose these connections to like our traditions and these stories that ground us?
It gives being a respect for tradition keeps us going. It keeps us having um a future. You understand? Because without that, we have no future. We have no frame of reference. If you have no frame of reference, you have no parameters. You don't know where to stop, where to start. You have no frame of reference. Of frame of reference for morality, for character, which is what really makes the human a good human being. It's not about being religious. It's not. It's more about being the spirituality. Of respect for your elders, of respect for other human beings. You know. So that's what I think it all the traditional carries promotes. You know. Ooh, sorry.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, it's really hot in here, so we'll let you get on. I think that's just really really beautiful. I think you're like a great humanist, and I'm really glad to have gotten to speak to you today.
Oh,
Um,
it's my pleasure. Absolute pleasure to speak to you, and whatever message that this can carry to the young ones, they should listen to it and see whether that could help them, carry on, after us. What they have in this, or what they hear in the songs. What they hear in the songs would hopefully be the vehicle, for the frame of reference, for future character. You know.
Well, it's been so amazing speaking to you on Obe. This has been Kat with Rise Collective, signing off. Thank you very much.